afternoon and welcome to the Handbags, Manbags, Bumbags podcast. This week we bring you episode number 24 of the podcast, and this week we will be taking another footballing episode. Jake joins us once again, replaces John for this week because John has gone home now for the summer and he didn't really fancy coming on this week. But anyway, Jake's here and he will be a useful asset for this week's episode, that's for sure. So on this week's episode, we're going to be diving into what we think each Premier League club for the 2021-22 season. We need to think of 3 players that they need to bring in and 3 players they need to get rid of. Now, for the sake of this, we haven't included any of the playoff teams. So for instance, Barnsley, Bournemouth, Swansea, or the other one, can't remember who it was, Brentford. But we haven't included them, but we have included Watford and Norwich because they are confirmed to be promoted. But as we are recording this, Brentford have also confirmed their place in the playoff final after their victory over Bournemouth. So without further ado, let's get into business and we'll start in alphabetical order. We'll go for Arsenal first. Now, Arsenal is certainly a club that is in need of a rebuild. Certainly not had the best of seasons, in a lowly 9th position, and certainly needs to change things around. So we'll start off with the players who we think need to go at Arsenal, because I think in a lot of circumstances, the players we've said to go out, the players we've got in are direct replacements. So we'll start with the players to go out at Arsenal. Now, I don't know how controversial we've all been with this, but the 3 players that I've said to go out at Arsenal are Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, Granit Xhaka, and Bernd Leno.
Well, I've actually gone with Aubameyang as well, the same as you. But I've also gone for Bellerin and Guendouzi.
I've gone 2 of the same. I've gone Guendouzi, Bellerin, and then Willian, which is a bit of a cop-out because it looks like he's leaving anyway.
Yeah, well, I think the elephant in the room really is the fact that me and Jacob both said Arsenal's captain to be got rid of. Now, I'll start with you, Jake. What is your reasoning behind Aubameyang's departure at Arsenal?
The main reason is pretty much his wages. He's on about 400k a week, and given his age as well, I think he's 32 this summer, and it looks like he's starting to slow down now. It's a bit of a problem. It's like the same problem Manchester United had with Sanchez. Like he's not performing well enough, and he's on huge wages, so it's a bit of a detriment to the club.
No, I totally agree with that, and it's a sort of similar approach that I went for in deciphering why Aubameyang should leave Arsenal. Yeah, obviously he's on about 400k a week. He's Arsenal's highest paid player, not cutting it week in week out, and he's just a bit of a knob really at the best of times, which is not. He's not really a leader in that team at all. And Arsenal need to invest in someone who is going to be that leader or move the captaincy elsewhere, because that's the problem with us. They haven't got a genuine leader on the pitch now. Since the players like Santi Cazorla have gone, Koscielny, they've just not got that genuine leader in their 11. And Aubameyang is just not been cutting it this year at all.
Yeah.
He's not captain material, is he?
No,
doesn't set the best example when your captain turns up late to a North London derby, really, does it?
And he's got done for COVID breaches as well.
Yeah.
Let's not forget about that. But
I mean, to be fair, I think an Arsenal fan summed up really well, because have you seen the picture from the African Player of the Year awards a couple of years back, when there's Salah and Riyad Mahrez are both wearing full-on suits, and Aubameyang turned up with a baseball cap, t-shirt, and shorts, and Arsenal fan put that picture and we're like, whose idea? Who seriously saw us give this guy the armband and thought it was a good idea?
No, his dress sense is absolutely dreadful. But let's focus on one of yours now, Rob, and we'll go for Hector Bellerin. Because Jake, you've also said Hector Bellerin as well. Let's focus in on that one next. Now, talk me through the reasonings behind why you think Bellerin should be going, because he is Arsenal's vice captain as well.
I just don't think he's good enough, really. I think he's been putting in subpar performances the last couple of years now. Like, I mean, no offense to Cedric Suarez, but he's not exactly he's not the top player you're expecting someone like Arsenal to have, and he's starting over him. Obviously, I know Bellerin has injury problems, but I think there's far better right backs in the league. Like you can see, like Leicester have 2 or 3 right backs better than Bellerin, and he's Arsenal's best option.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. He's not one of the ones that I said to go, plainly because I think he is one of the only genuine leaders in the Arsenal squad at the moment. And he's been with the academy for so many years now. But the next player I'm going to focus in on is Granit Xhaka. Now, I'm the only one that's put Xhaka. And my main reasonings are the fact that he's just not good enough to cut it in the Prem, and the fact that he's so ill-disciplined and he's got too many mistakes in him. I mean, the biggest one for me, he's made 2 big howling mistakes this year. One was a red, both against Burnley, for a matter of fact. The first game at the Emirates, red card for strangling Ashley Westwood. I mean, that's ill-discipline if ever there was any. And then in the reverse game at Turf Moor, passed it straight to Chris Wood in the penalty area. I mean, it's just spatial awareness. And him and it ties in perfectly, actually, to my final player to get rid of at Arsenal, which is their current number 1 goalkeeper, Bernd Leno. Early on in his Arsenal tenure, he showed signs that he could be a good goalkeeper in the Premier League, but the last 2 seasons, since COVID's been around, it's been a bit dodgy for him, in my personal opinion.
Yeah, he's made some howlers this season. The red card against Wolves, I think it was the Everton, was it, where he
put it through,
went to scoop it up and it went through his legs. Yeah.
No, he's got too many big errors in him for a high-profile keeper, which is why he's being replaced. And we'll go through who he's going to be replaced by at some point. Now, the next player you mentioned was Guendouzi. Now, he's currently on loan at Hertha Berlin. Not been playing regularly, I don't think, at Hertha. But Hertha's style, they do like to rotate their midfield a lot, which is possibly one of the reasons they're so low in the Bundesliga. But I think it's about time they cashed in on him, because he's, as we've seen, he couldn't cut it in the Premier League. Again, ill-disciplined like Granit Xhaka, and just lacks that flair that's needed for a defensive midfielder.
Yeah, I totally agree.
There's clearly an issue between him and Arteta as well, so hence why he went on loan in the first place. And then realistically, however the loan went, he was going to leave. If he does well, they were going to cash in. If he does badly, Arteta's just going to prove his point that he's not good enough for Arsenal.
Absolutely.
So realistically, as soon as he went on loan, that was the end of his Arsenal career.
Absolutely.
It was after that Brighton game, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Where the fallout started, and then obviously he didn't play for the rest of that season. Then he's been shipped out on loan, and it hasn't set the world alight. So, and if he's not doing it in the relegation scrap in the Bundesliga, he's never going to cut it in the top echelons of the Premier League.
Now, I'm not going to focus much on Willian, because it's all but confirmed that he's going to be leaving Arsenal at the end of the season anyway, with him being released. So let's go into the players we've got in at Arsenal. So let me run. The way I've done it, I've got 3 direct replacements for the 3 I've set out. So a direct replacement for Leno, Aubameyang and Xhaka. So the 3 I've got, the goalkeeper, I've gone for Unai Simon from Athletic Bilbao. The striker, I've gone for Danny Ings. And then the defensive midfielder, I've gone Dennis Zakaria from Borussia Mönchengladbach.
So I've gone for Max Aarons as Bellerin's replacement. And then I've gone for Odsonne Edouard from Celtic as Aubameyang's replacement. And then I've brought in a creative midfielder, which is Julian Brandt from Dortmund.
Again, there'd be 3 good signings. The only thing I see with Edouard, I think he's quite close to a move to Leicester, possibly, to link up with Brendan Rodgers again. I've seen a lot of rumours about that. But I think Arsenal would be a better move for him, personally. I think he's got more chance to shine at Arsenal. And he can make his name and possibly push his way into the France squad.
Yeah, I've gone, and mine's kind of replacements. I've gone Bellerin's replacement to be Tariq Lamptey from Brighton. And then Willian replacement in the different types of winger, really. And Emiliano Buendia from Norwich, who obviously they wanted last summer and changed their mind and signed Willian, which they regret that decision now. And then I've gone for a different attacking midfield. I've said to sign Martin Ødegaard on a permanent, because he's come in and won the fans over. Although I think Brandt would probably be a cheaper deal, given how much Madrid value Ødegaard at.
Yeah, that's the reason I went for Brandt, because I feel like Real Madrid will want to shift on some of their deadwood. Well, I say deadwood. Ødegaard's a good player, but obviously he's not going to stay at Madrid. Same as Dani Ceballos from Arsenal. But he's going back as new, but yeah.
Yeah, focus a bit more on Tariq Lamptey, Rob. What made you choose him as a direct replacement for Bellerin?
I just think he's a really good up and coming player. Really, he's impressed at Brighton. Obviously, the fact that they managed to get a deal for him, and obviously he was originally on loan from Chelsea. And realistically, it was only the kind of rise of Reece James that stopped Chelsea taking him back and playing him themselves, really. But the only issue potentially is injury prone, as obviously we've seen him not play for a while. But I think one of the many good English right backs we have coming through at the moment. And I think time to step up should be soon, really. Unless obviously Brighton can sort their problems out and start pushing for the top half like they have the potential to.
Yeah, well, we'll touch on Brighton in a few moments, in fact. But I'm going to focus on a couple of my ins at Arsenal. Now, Unai Simon from Athletic Bilbao, not the best keeper in the world, but he's a decent shot stopper. Yes, he's only got 9 clean sheets in the La Liga this season, but he's a proven goalkeeper. He's been part of the Spain squad, and he's a decent shot stopper. Because now you've mentioned Brighton to me, I'm thinking Robert Sanchez would be a good option at Arsenal, possibly.
Maybe, yeah, to be fair. Had a good season after he made it into the team.
Yeah, the only worry I'd have with Unai Simon is look how the last keeper from Bilbao is played out in the Premier League. And they obviously have release clauses, so it would be quite a hefty transfer fee, wouldn't it?
And we've seen big price tag signings at Arsenal not get on well. One being Nicola Pepe, although he is starting to pick it up a bit now in the back end of this season, but not justifying that 72 million price tag. And the final two I'm not going to focus on too much because I realise we've not got loads of time. Dennis Zakaria from Mönchengladbach is the sort of player Arsenal need, I think, really. Him and Thomas Partey working together as a defensive midfielder partnership. Partey with a bit more creativity. Zakaria is more of a defensive player with a goal in him as well. And he is the sort of player that Arsenal need, I think.
Yeah, it does suit. He does seem to fill the sort of hole that Thomas Partey was supposed to fill, but obviously his injury problems have restricted him from doing that, really.
Yeah, and then Danny Ings. Well, Danny Ings has been subject to a lot of interest from a lot of the top 6 sides. Spurs, Man City, Man United, Arsenal. But I've chosen to go to Arsenal purely due to the fact that I think he'll probably have more of an impact at Arsenal than any of the others.
I could agree with that, yeah.
Yeah.
I agree with that. I put him somewhere else, as you'll find out later, but still.
Yeah, proven Premier League goal scorer. I don't really see how that can go wrong, to be honest.
No, it's Arsenal, so anything's possible. But let's move on. Let's move on to Villa now, shall we?
Yeah.
So my outs at Villa is effectively just dead meat, just getting rid of. And it's Marvelous Nakamba, Bjorn Engels, and Ahmed El Mohammadi.
Well, I have two of the same as you. I have El Mohammadi and Bjorn Engels, but then I've also got Wesley as well because he had that serious knee injury, and I feel like it's just fun to shift them on, to be honest.
Yeah, I've made it a hat trick of Bjorn Engels. And I've gone with a different striker, in Mbwana Samatta, who's currently on loan in the Turkish league, so they clearly don't need him. Probably time to cash in if Fenerbahce want him permanently. And I've also gone Conor Hourihane because from watching him play, he just seems like a championship player, really, because he does. So every time he goes back down to the championship, he has an amazing season. He's been brilliant at Swansea, but he doesn't quite cut it in the Premier League.
I'd agree with that. I don't think there's any arguments at all for any of the players we've said there for Villa. No. The only one I'd probably say is one I've said, Marvelous Nakamba, because he does play for the first team now and then, but he's just not good. He's just not good enough, and they can improve on him. And you'll see who I think they can improve on in the 3 that I've gone in. So the 3 I have chosen, I've chosen a backup centre-back who's young and the possibility to possibly replace Tyrone Mings, because I just don't think he's good enough. I've gone Dale Fry from Middlesbrough. I've also gone Sander Berge because I believe he's got quite a low price tag because of his relegation to the Championship with Sheff U.
Yeah,
And
there was
then
a clause in his contract, I think, that said if they went down, they could get him. He could sell for like half the price they bought him for, or something.
yeah, and then the last one I've got for Villa is Ryan Kent from Rangers, because I feel like he's going to provide the creativity that Villa need, because there's no questioning El Ghazi's had a good season. He's had a really good season, but I think they could do so much better with Ryan Kent. But the only issue is the price tag, because Rangers will push Villa. But then again, Villa aren't afraid to splash the cash.
Yeah. So my three are Rashica from Werder Bremen as a winger. I've also got Jack O'Connell coming in at centre back. So I feel like Mings isn't good enough. I really rate Ezri Konsa, but I think Mings is a bit of a dodgy centre back. And then I've also got Anguissa coming in from Fulham.
Interesting choices. Yeah. I'd agree with all of them again.
Yeah, because I feel like Anguissa and John McGinn in midfield would be a very, very, very solid partnership indeed.
Anguissa just holding back a bit, providing the anchor sort of role, and then John McGinn, he's absolutely brilliant. He's so creative, and he's got a lethal shot in him.
Yeah. My three are actually very similar to Ben's three, in that I've also gone with Sander Berg, again, purely because of the price tag, and he's a Premier League player. And then I've gone similar with the other two. I've gone similar player to Ryan Kent in Brian and Mbeumo from Brentford. This is assuming that Brentford would not be promoted. Obviously, then would likely stay. Same with a couple of the other ones I'll say later. And then I've also gone down the centre-back route, but I've gone Tosin Adarabioyo from Man City, who's been on loan at Fulham this year. Again, similar young centre-half who could start off as a sub and eventually maybe start to put the pressure on Tyrone Mings.
Interesting one, I think, Adarabioyo, because a lot of people have put a downer on Fulham's season, really. But actually, defensively, they've not been too bad. Adarabioyo and Joachim Andersen,
very good.
Yeah, Adarabioyo and Joachim Andersen have been fantastic at centre back, and then obviously you've got Ola Reiner at right back. Ola Reiner at right back, and Anthony Robinson, who he must want to absolutely kill himself, not choosing Fulham over AC Milan. But no, I think we've chosen some good players there for Villa. We're not going to go into too much statistical analysis because we're on a time constraint. But let's go into Brighton next. Now, the outs at Brighton are, one's a first-team regular. The other two are hit and miss, really. So I think all three of us have got Neal Maupay to go out.
I have, yeah.
Yeah, I have, yeah.
I think we've all got Jose Izquierdo going out as well.
Yep, I had no idea he was still there till I started talking to you about it.
Yeah, I have Izquierdo going out as well.
And then my final one is Davy Proper. Don't know of the two you've got.
My player is Jack Hambash.
Alireza Jahanbakhsh.
Yeah, mine is Florian Andone, again, another one I forgot was even still there, which shows how little they need him.
Yeah, so let's focus a bit on Maupay now. Now, there was a lot of hype for him with the price tag that Brighton paid for him from Brentford. Only 15 million, but certainly hasn't cut it at all for the price they've paid.
No,
especially when you compare to the other Brentford option as well. Obviously, you see what Ollie Watkins has done for a similar sort of price tag, not too much more. Obviously. And
what we expect Ivan Toney to do should Brentford not go up. Izquierdo is a fairly simple one because he just not starting. He's not starting, barely getting on the bench as well. The fact that
same reason with Andone for me.
The fact they had to recall Percy Tau from Anderlecht shows that they cannot trust Izquierdo.
Yeah.
But the
Jack Hambash, I just think he's just such a average footballer. Like, they spent quite a bit of money on him and he's done bugger all. Apart from that overhead kick he scored against Chelsea, that's pretty much all he's done.
Absolutely. So I'm going to say my three in at Brighton. I've got a defensive midfielder. I've also got a winger and a striker coming in. The winger is Arnaut Danjuma, which I can now see happening now that Bournemouth are not going to be going up.
Yeah.
The defensive midfielder, I've gone for Julian Weigl from Benfica. And then the striker, is coming in from Roma, Borja Mayoral.
Interesting.
Yeah. Very good. Some very well in the Europa League, Borja Mayoral, to be fair.
Has indeed, and he's one of the top
Yeah.
scorers in the Serie A this season.
Mm.
And Julian Weigl is just a solid defensive pick. And Dan Juma has
Yeah.
been smashing it in the Championship all season.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, so the three I've gone for are Rico Henry from Brentford. That's assuming that they don't go up. Adam Armstrong from Blackburn, because he has been very, very good from lower mid-table Championship side. He's bagged, I think, 28 goals. And then my final one is James Garner on loan from Manchester United. So I think he suits the play style of Brighton.
I'd agree with those.
Perfectly.
I'd agree with all of those again.
I agree with them so much. I've gone two of the same in Adam Armstrong and Rico Henry. Because I think I think the way Brighton have gone, they tend to recruit from the Championship more so than from abroad.
Yeah, like
And I've
Adam
gone-
Webster. Yeah.
Yeah, and then I've gone with because I could see Tarek Lamptey leaving in the summer. I've then thought who would be a good replacement. And then further on from the discussion we had in the flat and the other day is James Tavernier from Rangers.
Interesting.
We were having a discussion the other day how we feel like he kind of gets slept on a lot when the debate of who clubs should sign at right back comes into, and he's actually doing a very good job out in the Scottish League and could definitely cut it in the Premier League given how well he plays.
Too good for the Scottish League,
totally agree.
Too good for the Scottish League. We are spending a bit too long on these, so we'll move on to the first one of a club that one of us supports, and it is said Burnley. Now, I am being realistic here with the signings that I want to bring in, but we'll start with the three that I want to go, and it's Dale Stephens, Kevin Long, and Robbie Brady, because quite frankly, we don't need any of them. Robbie Brady's too injury prone. Dale Stephens is just dreadful, and Kevin Long's played about 8 games over about 8 years. So I think I'll take the Burnley, but you may well have different ins to me. So I've gone Harry Wilson in from Liverpool. I know we were very close to getting him in the summer, but talks broke down. I've also gone for Nathan Collins from Stoke to come in as a possible Tarkowski replacement if he leaves to go to either West Ham or Leicester, which are the two feasible options. And it's also a double Stoke City raid because Stoke City are technically our feeder club. It's Tyrese Campbell, who was smashing it in the Championship before he got injured. And I think he's the sort of player that would be good for us with a bit of pace and an eye for goal.
Yeah.
Yeah, to be fair.
Well, the three ends I've also gone for Nathan Collins, but then I've gone for a goalkeeper, Alex McCarthy from Southampton. It just seems like a Burnley kind of signing. And then I put Ademola Lookman. I feel like it's never going to happen, but that's the kind of winger / striker Burnley desperately need.
And he is English. So that is Burnley's transfer strategy.
Yeah,
It is, yeah. Ademola Lookman will be absolutely perfect for Burnley. Someone with a bit of pace. We've got pace on one wing with him, and then we've got Dwight McNeil on the other with his wand of the left foot. But I think that is being very unrealistic.
Yeah, I think
And
I've
Alex
gone
McCarthy,
a bit more
I mean, come on.
realistic. Yeah, I think I've gone Nick Pope and James Tarkowski to both go out to then fund the cash for little bit of a rebuild. I've also got rid of Dale Stephens as well for the same sort of reasons you were saying, because it's Dale Stephens really in it. And then with the money from Nick Pope, I then thought get Sam Johnston because he's better than the Championship. So snap him from West Brom. It's a very decent keeper. And then I've also gone for another one based on a discussion we've been having in the flat in the last couple of days. I've then gone Nat Phillips from Liverpool because we were literally watching the Liverpool Burnley game saying how he just screams of a Sean Dyche player, everything about him. So you get him for probably half the price you get for Tarkowski. And then to be honest, I didn't know who to put, so I just copied Ben and put Harry Wilson.
No, I'd agree.
I asked Ben for help because I ran out of ideas.
I would agree with Sam Johnston if we did ever get rid of Nick Pope, which could well be likely. We could well cash in this summer because I know that Spurs may well be in need of a goalkeeper. But yeah, Sam Johnston's the sort of creeper that screams Burnley, really. English. He's not young anymore. He is about 27.
So does Alex McCarthy, mate.
I don't want Alex. He's grey at the age of 30. I mean, come on. But No, I'd agree with all of them. And if any of those signings did happen at Burnley, I would absolutely be delighted. So let's move on to the next big club now. And the next big club is Chelsea. And I'll start with my outs. I think two are pretty much nailed on certainties, with Tammy Abraham and Emerson possibly going. But then I have been quite controversial with one of my outs. It is one of their centre-backs. It's Antonio Rudiger. Controversial, I know.
Yeah, very.
When he's playing well, there's no questioning. He's a brilliant centre-back. But it's just not regularly enough for me. For a Chelsea side, he's got to be doing it week in, week out, and he just isn't. I mean, yes, he's playing very well under Tuchel these days, but I've seen when he's played under Lampard, his frailties as a centre-back. And for me, that's why I think they possibly could improve and get better, which is why two of my ins at Chelsea are centre-backs, with Thiago Silva also aging.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's fair enough, I suppose. Who was your next out?
It was Tammy Abraham and Emerson, but I won't dive in much into them.
Yeah, I've got them too. I've also got Ross Barkley as well, because he's just such an average footballer, isn't he? Like, not cutting it in a Champions League team.
Yeah,
Dead meat again.
I've made it another hat trick. This time, Tammy Abraham. I've also gone Ross Barkley, and then I've gone just finally get rid of Batshuayi instead of loaning him out every season. Just finally take the money and run.
Fair enough. I'll go for my ins at Chelsea. So the two centre-backs I've gone for are someone that Thomas Tuchel has worked with at PSG. I've gone for Presnel Kimpembe. Screams Chelsea, I think, that sort of signing, and would work very well with Thiago Silva in Chelsea's system. I've also gone for Pau Torres from Villarreal, young centre-back, a lot of potential possibly for the future. And then I've also gone for a reserve striker in the form of the youngster from PSV Eindhoven, Daniel Marlon.
Interesting. I think Joe's laptop's died.
Yep, quite possibly, but we'll soldier on. Hang on, let me Chelsea's. Yep, so those are my three: Presnel Kimpembe, Pau Torres, and Daniel Marlon.
Yeah, there'll be three very solid signings for Chelsea. So I've gone for Maxence Lacroix from Wolfsburg, because I've seen on Twitter that people really highly rate him, and he's been very good for Wolfsburg this season. I've gone for a striker in Darwin Núñez from Benfica, because I've seen bits of him and he looks a proper handful, which is something Chelsea need. And then also Ruslan Malinovsky from Atalanta as another midfielder to come in.
Ukrainian man himself. No, three good signings again for Chelsea.
Yeah. I've also gone with Maxence Lacroix, because for the same sort of reasons, really. He seems to be very highly rated, but obviously I'm not somebody who watches a lot of German football, but I trust what I've seen about him. And I've also gone Raphael Varane, or another centre-back option. I think realistically it'll be one or the other with those two, but I was struggling what else to go with, so I put them both down. And again, Varane, just solid option. It looks like he's not going to be signing a new deal at Real Madrid, so he'll be available quite cheap. Or you could always gamble that he stays another year and get him even cheaper next year. And then I've gone with somebody Chelsea are linked with, because I think they will want a striker. There's a couple of options. I think the best one, the ones I've seen, is Paulo Dybala, because just the versatility he gives you. Because at Juventus, he can play as a number 10. He plays up front. He plays on both wings at times as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Fluid football Thomas Tuchel likes to play, I think it would suit him a lot, because he'd be comfortable drifting onto the left, onto the right, or obviously through the middle.
I think Dybala does scream a Thomas Tuchel signing, really. Would have worked with him well at PSG. And I reckon it will work well with him at Chelsea. If it happens, we don't know. But let's move on to Palace now. We'll try and rattle through Palace. So the three I've got out they're all dreadful players. Joel Ward, James McCarthy, and James Tompkins, all failing to cut it in the Premier League anymore. So they're the three I've got going out to Palace.
Yeah, I've got James McCarthy, James MacArthur, and Mamadou Sakho.
I've got Mamadou Sakho, Joel Ward, and then Jordan Ayew.
Jordan Ayew? Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Very interesting. That could well be a controversial one for Palace, that's for sure. Because he was starting very regularly at one point, pre-Christmas. But
I just don't think he's been good enough, really. Since Benteke's back into form, they've recently signed Jean-Philippe Mateta from Mainz as well.
He
I
hasn't
think he's a
cut
better
it, though.
option.
No,
I think he's a better option off the bench, to be honest. So
I would say
cash
Ayew's
in on
better than
Ayew.
Mateta, really. Because Mateta's just not cut it. So he's only on loan, I think, with an option to buy Mateta. And he just hasn't been cutting it. The fact that he was smashing it for, who was he playing? For Stuttgart or something.
Mainz.
Mainz, that's the one.
Mainz, yeah.
But he just wasn't cutting it for them. And he was cutting it for them. He comes to the Premier League and can't hack it. It's a lot. It's the same for a lot of these come over. But
part of the
for
other
me,
reason is because I have replaced him in my ins, which I'll get to in a minute.
See, I've also got a striker coming in at Palace, but the other two I'm going to say are Jefferson Lerma from Bournemouth, because they do need a midfielder. I've also gone for Harry Suter from Stoke. They need a young centre-back to replace their very ageing back line. And then one that I perhaps think that you two would have never heard of. It's a striker from Stuttgart. It's Sasa Kalajic. He's playing for Stuttgart, and he's 6th top scorer in the Bundesliga.
Decent effort for Stuttgart. Yeah.
16 goals this season in 32 games. So he's averaging a goal every other game, which is something Palace will certainly need.
Yeah. I think whoever comes in as new manager of Palace is going to have a lot of work to do in the summer
rebuilding
window.
job, that's for sure.
So they'll have to hope that Steve Parish gives them a decent budget, or Palace might be in trouble next year.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So my 3 ins are John Egan from Sheffield United. The same reason as Ben. They need a younger centre back. I've got somebody from La Liga called Yangel Herrera. He's a defensive midfielder. They need somebody like that because I feel like Milivojevic is starting to slow down quite a bit, and also Callum Chambers as a new right back.
All of them scream Palace signings.
Yeah. I've gone different Sheffield United centre half in Jack O'Connell. I think very underrated, given you can see the effect Sheffield United have had of missing him this year. I've then gone a similar position in the defensive midfielder, but I've gone with Mario Lemina because he's impressed at Fulham this season. And then I've replaced Jordan Ayew with Divock Origi because I still think he's good enough to cut it in the Premier League. If nothing else, he could provide a decent option, like pairing with Christian Benteke could do a job, I think. Not going to get you 10 goals a season or whatever, could get you 5 or 6. And when you're in the situation Palace are, that could be massive.
I think Mario Lemina is a great shout for Palace, actually. It's one I didn't think of. But let's move on to Everton. So a good mate of ours from our course, Matt Waters, has given me a bit of intel onto his reasons behind certain deals at Everton, being a big Everton fan himself. So the outs he's told me are Moise Kean, Mason Holgate, and Bernard. And realistically, they're all players that should go. But then he went quite bold with his players in at Everton. He went for Kalidou Koulibaly from Napoli to rekindle the partnership with him and Ancelotti and Alan. He also went for Max Aarons, which is a feasible option, which they certainly need a new right back. And he also went for Leon Bailey from Bayer Leverkusen. Now, they are big transfers for Everton, but Everton are that sort of club that are going forward.
Yeah, they need to take that next step, don't they, to try and push for the Europa League and maybe even Champions League in a couple of years' time.
Absolutely. So I pretty much went for similar ones for ours, except I went for Andre Gomez and Iwobi as well. But actually, I'd probably swap Bernard for Iwobi. And then the ins I went for were Jonathan Ikone from Lille. It's sort of player Everton need. I also went for Bakayoko from Chelsea, although he's on loan at Napoli currently. And then again, Max Aarons screams Everton. Rekindle that partnership with Ben Godfrey.
Yeah. So my 3 outs are Moise Kean, because it looks like he's going to go to PSG on a permanent. Bernard, because he's on stupid wages for somebody that just isn't cutting it. And then I've gone controversial and I've put James Rodriguez.
I'd agree with that, actually, to be honest. Just he's been too injury prone, and it's clear to see to me that he doesn't actually like the Premier League.
Yeah.
He's one of those players really just doesn't quite suit the physicality of the Premier League. I mean, he's had a good season, but I don't see it lasting long term because he kind of can't play the way he wants to because you've got people like Declan Rice who will clatter him as soon as he tries a skill.
Yeah, absolutely. Shall we move on to Leeds next?
My ones I had for Everton are pretty much the same. The only different one I had was Anguissa from Fulham, who we've already mentioned as a potential signing for Aston Villa. And other than that, I just had down a winger, and then you told me that Matt said Leon Bailey, so I nabbed that. Then obviously Max Aarons.
I have Kostic, Emerson from Real Betis as a right back, and Sander Berge.
Okay, so let's move on to Leeds. So for Leeds, we're going to have to do this a bit quicker. So in at Leeds, I've gone Jack Harrison on a permanent because he's just been absolutely cutting it week in, week out for Leeds. And he's the sort of player they just need to sign permanently now. He knows the mould of the club and works well under Bielsa. Rodrigo de Paul from Udinese. It's the sort of player that Leeds need in their midfield. And then, quite frankly, I couldn't think of another one. So I just said a reserve goalkeeper in Angus Gunn.
Yeah, I also went for Jack Harrison in because he's been superb for Leeds and there's no reason for them not to go for him permanently. I've also gone for a centre-back in Marcos Sensi from Feyenoord because I've got Liam Cooper going out because I just don't think he's good enough for the Premier League. I've also got Alioski going out and his replacement would be Jordan Amavi from Marseille. Because his first stint in the Premier League wasn't great, but he's proven himself to be a good player now.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah,
I've gone Jack Harrison as well. Obviously, seems like the most obvious deal there. Also went Rodrigo de Paul. And then because I've put Helder Costa to go out, even though he doesn't play much, I've then gone with another attacking option and Mateus Cunha. And I've gone Adam Forshaw and Alioski, the other two out.
Yeah, I went Alioski, Pablo Hernandez, and Kiko. Well, Pablo Hernandez has already confirmed to be leaving, and then Kiko Casilla to go out. But Mateus Cunha is one that would suit Leeds. I know he's been very heavily linked over the past couple of days, and he's too good for Hertha Berlin. So would work well at Leeds. Now we come to another club on the rise, which is Leicester City. Start with the ones going out. So the ones I've got going out, Nampalys Mendy, not playing regularly enough, and Leicester have got quite a few options in that position. Also got Dennis Pratt going out. Now, I know he's been quite unlucky with injuries that he's had at Leicester, but when he's been playing, he's looked good, but he's not played regularly enough, and he could get off Leicester's wage bill. And then the final one, which is a tad controversial, is Ricardo Pereira. Now, we've seen Timothy Castagna come in at Leicester and make that right back position his own, and he can also play left back. And Ricardo Pereira, since he's been injured, he's come back nowhere near the player he was. And I feel like Leicester can improve in that position, which is why I've got a left back on my list of ins.
Yeah, well, I've gone the same as you, Ben, as with Dennis Pratt and Ricardo Pereira, pretty much for the same reasons, to be honest. And then I've also gone for Ayoze Perez. I just think he's just a meh kind of player, isn't he? Like, I think he's got 2 goals this season.
Yeah, missed a massive chance against Chelsea in midweek as well, which by the time this goes out might have been the reason why they don't get top 4, depending on what happens in Sunday's games.
Quite possibly.
I mean, it's not as controversial as you thought because I've also gone Ricardo Pereira. And then I've gone similar, but instead of Nampalys Mendy, I've gone Hamza Chowdhury to go out. And then I've also just said to cash in on Kiernan Dewsbury Hall because he's been very impressive in the Championship this season. I don't think he's going to push the midfield anytime soon. So I think take what you can get and give him a full season in the Championship. But might as well, as I say, take the money and run sort of situation, really.
Yeah, it'd be a good permanent signing for Luton, Kiernan Dewsbury Hall. Certainly made them stronger in their push towards the top half of the Championship. But let's go in for ins at Leicester. So I have the left back I've chosen was Nicolas Tagliafico from Ajax. I know they were very heavily linked with him. Now, I've gone for an attacking midfielder that I think we need to bring in, and I've got 2 options here. I've got Matheus Pereira from West Brom, but the other one I've gone for is Michael Elise from Reading. He's a young player, up and coming, and he would certainly help Leicester out in the future because I think James Maddison may well leave at some point, with him having this apparent disagreement with Brendan Rodgers. And then the final one, I just couldn't think, so I just said Boubakary Soumaré because he's practically confirmed.
Yeah, I've copped out massively with Leicester as well. I've put him as well. And I've also gone Edson Edouard as well, who we mentioned earlier, is very close to getting down over the line as well.
Yeah, I put Soumaré, Robin Gosens as a new left back, and then they could probably shift Castagna over to right back. And then I've also gone for Matthias Perraud because I think he's a superb player and he's far too good for the Championship.
Yeah,
I went a bit different.
The thing is, can play as a left mid as well, so he can. He's kind of a Mark Albrighton sort of player, just an upgrade.
Yeah, very, very similar to Castagna. Really, it'd just be rebuilding the wing back pair and Atalanta had a couple of seasons ago.
Yep.
And I've gone with a winger for my third one after copping out in the first two. I actually did come up with a semi-original idea, and I went Ismaila Sarr from Watford. Because I think if Leicester can just sign a top-tier right midfielder, I think their squad's looking brilliant. Obviously, you've got Vardy, Iheanacho fighting for the striker spot. Midfield speaks for itself. Harvey Barnes on the left when he's fit again. Then you've got the likes of Iosi Perez, Cengiz Under on the right at the moment. It's just not quite working. So I think Ismaila Sarr, a young player as well, so like the rest of Leicester's squad, a lot of their starting 11 are under the age of 25, which obviously Sarr is also. So good to keep that same midfield and wingers for a good few years and watch them grow as players.
Yeah. I just want to focus a bit more on Michael Olise if we can. He's very young. He fits the Leicester mould. He's under the age of 20. He's been slapped with a very big potential from his first couple of seasons at Reading. And he's the sort of player that would help Leicester out in the future, I think. He's an attacking playmaker, can play just behind the striker or on the wing. And he'd be a good utility player for Leicester, but the price tag, Reading will probably slap a huge price tag on him.
Maybe,
yeah. Well, Leicester have gone to the Championship before and it's worked out in James Maddison, so there's no reason not to go for Olise.
Right, big club, another supporter club on this channel. Liverpool is next, and I'll let Rob lead on this one.
I'll start with the outs because I've just completely copped out and gone with obviously, as you already know, because I've set him to sign for Palace, Divock Origi to go out because I think time to cut the losses really, and I've gone Harvey Elliott out on loan because I think need to send him to a Premier League club after a good season at Blackburn, and then again another one I've already mentioned earlier in the podcast, Harry Wilson, because I've sent him to Burnley. Yeah, well the three are a bit more interesting. So I'll let you two do your ins first because mine are a bit more out there.
Okay. Well, one of my ins is already pretty much confirmed, Ibrahima Konate. I've also gone for Nabil Fekir from Betis. I think he's the sort of player that would fit Liverpool's sort of mould well as a more of attacking midfielder. And then I've also said Milot Rashica as a backup right mid because I know Jake said him to come in at Villa, but again, I do see. I could probably see him being more useful at Villa, but I just feel like he's the sort of Liverpool signing that would go there as a backup right mid.
Yeah, so I've also gone for Konate as well. I think he's pretty close to the move. I've also gone for Renato Sanchez because they need an energetic midfielder to replace Wijnaldum because he's leaving in the summer.
Yeah,
and then I've also gone for Jeremy Boga from Sassuolo as another attacking option.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. As I said, mine are outside I've just dodged Konate because it's pretty much already done. The sensible one I've got, well, they're all sensible in my head, but the obvious one I've gone with is Yves Bissouma, or however you say his first name. Bissouma from Brighton. Seems the most logical replacement out of the options for Wijnaldum because he's proven it in the Premier League. Then my two more slightly dodgy ones that I don't think we're actually linked with, but I think make a lot of sense. The first one is Pedro Goncalves at Sporting Lisbon, the guy who's basically replaced Bruno Fernandes. He's got insane numbers, similar to levels of Bruno gone. Obviously, he instantly adapted. Not saying Goncalves would do both, but the main reason is because he can cover the wing. He can play false nine, which obviously can battle Firmino if he does well. And so obviously wing covers that sub option. He can also play attacking mid, which then obviously covers that sort of Fekir role you were saying. I think with how many positions he covers and how young he is, it makes sense. And then the very ambitious one is Harry Kane, because I think he's the only kind of top tier striker out there at the moment that could play Firmino's role, because I think that's our weakness at the moment, and that we're overly reliant on Firmino and he doesn't score too many goals. But I think Harry Kane could drop in and do the defensive work, but could then push on and obviously then go and get you 20 goals a season as well, which Firmino gets nowhere near.
Great analysis there from Roberto Bins. Just for the sake of, I said Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain, Shaqiri and Tsimikas to go out at Liverpool. Pretty much all dead meat, and would probably be better off elsewhere at other Premier League clubs. Right, so what we've decided to do is we've come to our 10th club. Liverpool has split the league in half. So we're going to round off episode 24 here, and we're going to feature the other 9 clubs, because the 10th one has not been confirmed yet. We're going to record that again now, and we're going to be releasing that later in the week, either Wednesday or Thursday. Set your diaries. 2 episodes in a week. Never get this lucky ever. So we'll record this. We'll round this off now. We'll come back on Wednesday for part 2 of the ins and outs at the Premier League. So take care for now, and we shall see you later in the week. Ta-ra.
Bye.
Bye.